Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the content patch for the 25th of September 2013. My name is TotalBiscuit with today's gaming news and comment. Coming up in the show, various GTA 5 crash issues reported, Nvidia will be assisting with an open source graphics driver for Linux, and the 3DS version of FIFA 14 is quite literally the same as last year's. All this and the OC Remix track of the day is coming your way right about now. There have been widespread reports of various issues with GTA 5, including a bug with the garages that Rockstar has actually addressed by advising players just not to use them until the bug can actually be fixed. The bug itself can cause upgrades to be lost and every now and again will cause an entire vehicle to vanish into thin air. And there does not appear to be a workaround to get the car back. So at the moment, they're recommending that you do not park your cars in the garage. That is not a very good idea at all, because you may end up losing the vehicle and the upgrades attached to it. Rockstar has noted that the fact that cars parked in one garage do not appear in another character's safe house is in fact an intended design decision rather than a bug, just in case people were a little bit confused about that. This has also come alongside the news that GTA 5 appears to be crashing older Xbox 360s. Currently, the models that were more susceptible to the red ring of death, that being any console manufactured between 2005 and 2009, in other words, the standard-sized machines with the hard drive mounted to the top, are susceptible to potential crashing after playing about 30 minutes of GTA 5. Some users have reported swapping out the hard drive for a larger one to see if that had anything to do with it, but it would not appear to have actually fixed the problem as it stands. The actual freeze can happen anywhere between 5 and 30 minutes into the play session, and typically happens during Franklin's first mission and after the tutorial mission and cutscenes. So it does appear to be something that is fairly consistent on certain older machines. One way or the other, there is also no fix for that either at this time, so if you happen to own an older Xbox 360 and have the intention of picking up GTA 5, you might want to hold off until that is fixed. Some have even speculated that the issue may not be fixable at all, with the hardware simply being too old to handle the game. This does kind of line up with what we've heard about the game up to this point, that they really had to squeeze every last ounce of juice out of the current hardware, including streaming from both the disc and the hard drive simultaneously, with problems coming into play if users decided to install the entire game on the hard drive instead of doing it the more recommended way. It's interesting when we think about the way that consoles are. We assume that every console, no matter what the age, in the same line of console is going to perform identically, and you'd think that it would. But as it stands, that would appear to not be the case. We heard earlier this week that machines with slower hard drives were also having problems as well, which is of course kind of predictable, but frankly, I haven't heard of this being a big deal before this game came out. I know that some hard drives are slower than others, and of course older hardware may be prone to more problems, but I haven't heard about any specific performance issues that have been related to the older machines. Maybe I've just missed out on them over the past few years, but that didn't seem to be all that common. It wouldn't surprise me if we see a few more of those before the transition through to the next generation, and by the sounds of it, it can't come a moment too soon. At this time, there don't appear to be any officially Rockstar-endorsed ways of getting a refund, but of course, look at your local consumer laws. Chances are you will be able to refund the game if you need to at the moment. Nvidia is not exactly well liked among the Linux community. Last year, the guy who is basically responsible for the development of the Linux kernel by the name of Linus Torvalds gave the company the middle finger, quite literally, during a public speech, which is not exactly known as the universal sign of greeting. Whatever the case, they have been described by many Linux developers as the single worst company involved in that particular operating system, but it would seem that times they are a-changin'. Nvidia has claimed that they will be releasing an awful lot of information which will allow Linux users and developers to better utilize the hardware. This begins with documentation of the device control block layout for Nvidia's video BIOS. And moving forward, it would appear that they are attempting to get involved with the open source driver for Nvidia cards by the name of Nouveau, which, as you might imagine, is currently struggling along without the aid of Nvidia. So it would appear that Nvidia are actually trying to get that thing properly up and running and taking Linux seriously. This is most assuredly a bit of a 180 when it comes to Nvidia, who last year stated that while we understand that some people would prefer us to provide detailed documentation on all of our GPU internals or be more active in the Linux kernel community, we have made a decision to support Linux on our GPUs by leveraging Nvidia Common Code rather than the Linux Common Infrastructure. While this may not please everyone, it does allow us to provide the most consistent GPU experience to our customers regardless of platform and operating system. Now, Linus Torvalds has actually responded to this, although he was somewhat cynical, as you might imagine, claiming that we'll see. I'm cautiously optimistic that this is a real shift in how Nvidia perceives Linux. The actual docs released so far are fairly limited, and in themselves they wouldn't be a big thing, but if Nvidia actually does follow up and start opening up more, that would certainly be great. They've already been much better in the ARM SoC space than they were on the more traditional GPU side, and I really hope that someday I can just apologize for ever giving them the finger. Well, an interesting time to announce this, considering it comes a day after the announcement of Steam OS. I think it should be fairly obvious that Nvidia now knows where the wind is blowing. The fact is that Nvidia is sitting in a position where they are not involved in the major next-generation consoles. That's AMD's deal. So what have they got? They've got their own handheld device, the Shield, and then they've got PCs. Yeah? And they're in a strong position when it comes to PC hardware. They are definitely the more used graphics device versus AMD. But that could very easily change if SteamOS does take off in a big way and gamers on PC start shifting away from Windows. Because at that point, you then are extremely concerned that your graphics drivers and your graphics devices in general are just not up to snuff on a Linux operating system. So, yeah, they kind of do need to open up pretty badly. If they lost the PC space, then, in my opinion, they would be in fairly serious trouble. Obviously, they are competing in the mobile space as well with their Tegra processors, but that is a pretty hot market, and they are not dominant in that market like they are in the PC market. They need to make sure that they do not lose the PC gaming market. If they do, they're going to be in serious trouble, and the Shield, most assuredly, will not keep them alive. It's a nice little product, but it's not going to be a huge mass market success. I think we can all safely say that. It's a bit of a niche device, which is fine, but niche devices do not keep your company alive. I mean, I'm happy to see this, honestly, and it seems to make sense to get involved in an already decent open source driver, yeah? It's already there. They can clearly do what they're supposed to do, and they've done it without your help. What can they do with your help? Apparently quite a lot. So I am looking forward to them hopefully opening up to this, since we now see Linux with the SteamOS as potentially a viable alternative for gaming. But I don't expect it to happen anytime soon. We'll see. It is on the horizon right now, and personally, I'm kind of excited about the idea. And finally, many jokes are made at the expense of EA and Activision that their so-called yearly franchises are basically the same game released over and over again, but in this case, it's quite literally true. It would appear that the £40, yes, £40, that's about $60 plus, version of FIFA 14 for the 3DS is in fact identical to FIFA 13 with the exception of roster updates. That is it. Nintendo has actually issued a press release stating that the FIFA 14 Legacy Edition delivers unmatched authenticity that reflects the current football season with updated kits and rosters, but no updates to gameplay or game modes. This is not the first time they've pulled this on Nintendo, not by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, FIFA 13 on the Wii was almost the same as FIFA 12, if you can believe that, and at the moment EA is not supporting the Wii U in any way, shape, or form. Good lord, that is absolutely insane. How on earth can they get away with this kind of thing? I mean, to me, it seems like they would have to very clearly label it in such a way. Charging £40, so a full-priced release for something along those lines is just absurd. This is the kind of thing that can be done with DLC updates these days. Even on the 3DS, even on a handheld device, you can easily pull this off. The fact that they are not doing that right now boggles my mind. The whole EA is evil thing has almost become a meme at this point, but I don't think I really believed that they would actually do this. Frankly, year-on-year iterations of sports games are a little silly, but you've also got to bear in mind that for a lot of gamers, that is the only game they will buy that year. Yeah, they just buy the sports game and that's all they want to play, which is totally fine. But this is pretty damn exploitative. Now, I know that EA is not getting along well with Nintendo right now, but the fact that they can even just release that is kind of absurd. It seems to me that Nintendo should be very clearly labeling this thing as a roster expansion, and that's it. Like, it should not be labeled as Legacy Edition. I mean, what is Legacy Edition? What does that even mean? It doesn't mean anything. It's absurd. Worse still, this particular title is available on the eShop, which means that getting a refund for it is going to be significantly more difficult. You could take in a lot of people doing this. Now, I decided to go on Amazon and actually look for this thing, and it does appear to be available on the 3DS as a cartridge, but there is no written description for it whatsoever. There's nothing there. There is nothing to indicate that this is simply the same game with an updated roster. Heading over to Play.com, which is one of the more popular UK online e-tailers, I suppose, there's no mention of that either, which makes me assume that there's no mention on the back of the box. In fact, looking at the description for both, it's obvious they've just rewritten the description from FIFA 13, but moved some stuff around. Like, at the bottom of the description for FIFA 13 is complete authenticity, over 500 officially licensed clubs with more than 15,000 players. And then at the top of the features list of FIFA 14 is unmatched authenticity. Compete with 500 officially licensed clubs in 11 versus 11 matches in authentic stadiums from around the world. So they don't mention the number there. And it goes on and on and on with plenty of other examples. And frankly, that's disgraceful. The fact that they can just put that in a box and say, hey, yeah, this is a roster update, it should pretty clearly state that it is. I don't have the box. I don't know whether or not that's the case, but it is not written on either of those big major internet retailers, which I would expect it to be, because they're pretty thorough. So yeah, that's disgraceful. If you're looking to grab FIFA on a portable platform, I would strongly suggest that you do not do it on 3DS. Alright folks, that's me done for the day. Thank you very much for watching the content patch, but before I go, I'd like to give you the OC Remix track of the day. I'm gonna be honest, I'm on a little bit of a Phoenix Wright binge right now. I think it's because I'm getting excited for Dual Destinies, which is coming out very, very soon. Like, the only visual novel series that I actually follow in any way, shape, or form. But one way or the other, there is another pretty good Phoenix Wright remix available on OC Remix. This one is by a remixer called OA, and it's a medley of the tracks Maya Fey Turnabout Sisters Theme 2001, Pursuit Cornered, and Testimony Moderato 2001. This came out last year, so it's a relatively new remix, and I think probably the best description I could put in here is it's a little bit power metal, it's a little bit Europe, and it's a little bit Van Halen. Very interesting ideas going on with this one, and it goes by the name of Carry the Moment. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.